campaign trail in Pennsylvania. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Good evening, everyone. This is ABC News Live Prime. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We have a lot of news to get to tonight, including the death of the man believed to be the mastermind behind the October 7th attack, Yahya Sinwar. The reaction in Israel as families of those killed and still held hostage react to the news and what Sinwar's killing means for the growing conflict. Plus, the sprint to Election Day, the dueling 2024 events tonight as Vice President Harris meets with voters in Wisconsin and former President Trump attends the Al Smith charity dinner in New York City as he doubles down on his remarks regarding Harris's race. And why authorities now say a former Olympic athlete is now a fugitive wanted for running a $1 billion international drug ring. But we do begin with that major development in the Middle East tonight. Israeli forces have killed the head of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar. Sinwar was the architect of the October 7th horrific terror attack. Taking him out was one of the main goals of Israel's war with Hamas. He was believed to be hiding deep inside Gaza's tunnels. But 24 hours ago, an Israeli military drone looking for suspects after a firefight spotted Sinwar on the third floor of a residential building sitting in the middle of rubble. Shortly after that, a sniper took him out. It wasn't until this morning that he was identified as the Hamas chief, first by sight and then by DNA. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed Israelis today, saying, as we have promised to do, we have settled the score. In Tel Aviv tonight, Israelis celebrated the death of an enemy, but there are new concerns over the fate of those hostages, including Americans still being held in Gaza. What impact will this have on the multiple fronts of this war? And what is President Biden's message for Israel tonight? Former Defense Department official Mick Mulroy is standing by, but we begin with Tom Sufi Burge, who leads us off from Tel Aviv.
Tonight, this Israeli military drone capturing the final moments of Israel's most wanted terrorist, the mastermind of the October 7th terror attack, Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. This graphic image showing his dead body after he was killed by Israeli forces. It was IDF reservists, not special ops, who came across Sinwar by chance during a routine operation in Rafah yesterday, flying that drone into a building after a gun battle, spotting an armed man sitting in a chair, his face covered, his hand bleeding after being shot. The man throwing an object at the drone, soldiers soon after killing him. But at this point, they still didn't know it was Sinwar. In fact, it wasn't until today when a separate unit checking the building found his body and recognized it was the Hamas leader, confirming his identity through DNA, dental records and fingerprints. Tonight, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying Sinwar's death brings the end of the war closer, but it's not over yet. President Biden today speaking with Netanyahu from Air Force One, congratulating him on Sinwar's assassination. The two leaders agreeing this is an opportunity to secure the release of the hostages, vowing to work together. US officials telling us Sinwar was the main roadblock in the latest ceasefire and hostage negotiations. Across Israel today, cheers, but also fear.
Well, they're chanting enough. The hope amongst these families and friends of the hostages is that the death of Yahya Sinwar could open the door for the end of the war in Gaza and a deal to get their loved ones home.
Family members of the remaining hostages, including Americans, taking to the streets, now more concerned than ever.
I'm not shedding one single tear for the life of him, but now there's no central leadership. So the hostages are now left to the mercy of the local captor, which is much more dangerous for them.
Killing Sinwar has been one of the main goals of Israel's war with Hamas. Sinwar in hiding for more than a year and seen here in a Gaza tunnel in video released by the IDF in February. Today, the IDF posting 3 words: eliminated Yahya Sinwar. Vice President Harris today saying justice has been served.
Sinwar was the mastermind of October 7, the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust.
And saying this about his killing.
The United States, Israel, and the entire world are better off as a result.
And tonight, Sinwar's assassination dealing a major blow to Hamas amid the threat of wider escalation in this region.
Our thanks to Tom Sufi Burridge. New details tonight about the final hours of Liam Payne, the One Direction star who died in a fall from a balcony in Argentina. Newly released 911 calls reveal hotel workers reaching out for help out of concern for Payne's erratic behavior and fears for his life. Meanwhile, his bandmates are talking about his loss. Louis Tomlinson saying, "I lost a brother." And Zayn Malik in a post, "I will cherish all the memories I have with you." Our Trevor Ault has the latest.
Tonight, disturbing new details in the tragic death of One Direction member Liam Payne. Late yesterday, the 31-year-old pop star falling about 40 feet from his third-floor hotel room in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Paramedics pronouncing him dead at the scene. The security ministry now tells ABC News the singer jumped from the balcony, but authorities are still investigating if it was intentional. He is believed to have been alone in his hotel room, but reports say earlier the singer had been acting aggressively and erratically in the hotel lobby. A concerned hotel manager making this 911 call in Spanish requesting help.
Y necesitamos que nos envíen a alguien urgente para una habitación que tiene balcón y bueno, estamos un poco con temor de que haga algo que le ponga en riesgo su vida.
The prosecutor's office confirms these photos shared with ABC News were taken inside Payne's hotel room, appearing to show drugs and a smashed television. A preliminary autopsy report saying Payne's death was a result of multiple traumas and internal and external bleeding, adding Payne didn't seem to adopt a reflex posture to protect himself, and that he could have fallen while in a state of semi or total unconsciousness. Overnight, shocked fans gathering outside the Casa Sur Hotel. Payne had been in Argentina since the beginning of October when he attended the concert of former One Direction bandmate Niall Horan. Payne seen dancing in the crowd.
Morning, everybody.
He posted this video to Snapchat just hours before his death. Payne leaves behind a son. Tonight, his family saying, "We are heartbroken. Liam will forever live in our hearts and we'll remember him for his kind, funny, and brave soul." And for the first time, his former bandmates speaking out in a joint statement, "We're completely devastated by the news of Liam's passing. We will miss him terribly."
Our thanks to Trevor Ault. With just 19 days now until the presidential election, former President Donald Trump stunned many during a town hall, telling a voter in the audience that January 6th was a day of love. Vice President Kamala Harris then blasted Trump, saying the country and the world saw the violence that day. Just a short time ago, Harris addressed a crowd in Wisconsin and had this to say.
Now, we here know January 6th was a tragic day for our country. It was a day of terrible violence with attacks on law enforcement. 140 law enforcement officers were injured that day. Law enforcement officers were killed that day. And what did Donald Trump say last night about January 6th? He called it, quote, a day of love. And we are all clear. The American people are exhausted with his gaslighting. Exhausted. Enough. Enough.
Tonight, the moment in that Trump town hall, what that voter asked, and the subsequent fallout. Mary Bruce reports from Wisconsin tonight.
Tonight in Battleground, Wisconsin, Vice President Kamala Harris taking aim at Donald Trump for his new comments calling January 6th a, quote, day of love.
We here know January 6th was a tragic day. It was a day of terrible violence. There were attacks on law enforcement. 140 law enforcement officers were injured. Some were killed. And what did Donald Trump say last night about January 6th? He called it a, quote, a day of love.
Trump's comments came in a Univision town hall.
Buenas noches, señor Trump.
In response to a question from a Republican voter, Ramiro Gonzalez, who told the former president he was disturbed by his actions on January 6th.
I want to give you the opportunity to try to win back my vote. Okay, your, let's say, action and maybe inaction during your presidency and the last few years sort of, was a little disturbing to me. What happened during January 6th and the fact that, you waited so long to take action while your supporters were attacking the Capitol. I'm curious how people so close to you and your administration no longer want to support you, so why would I want to support you? If you would answer these questions for me, I would really appreciate it and give you the opportunity. There's, your own vice president doesn't want to support you now.
Thank you, Ramiro.
So the people that don't support, a very small portion, we have a tremendous, about 97% of the people in the administration support me. But because it's me, somebody doesn't support, they get a little publicity. The vice president, I disagree with him on what he did. I totally disagreed with him on what he did. Very importantly, you had hundreds of thousands of people come to Washington. They didn't come because of me. They came because of the election. They thought the election was a rigged election, and that's why they came. Some of those people went down to the Capitol. I said, peacefully and patriotically, nothing done wrong at all, nothing done wrong. This was a tiny percentage of the overall, which nobody sees and nobody shows. But that was a day of love from the standpoint of the millions. It's like hundreds of thousands.
Though Trump says the crowd on January 6th didn't come because of him, he was the one who told them to travel to Washington, promising, quote, it will be wild. Tonight, that voter saying he won't be voting for Trump, quote, because he didn't tell me the truth. And Harris not holding back.
It points out something that everyone here knows. The American people are exhausted with his gaslighting.
In the final 2.5 weeks of this campaign, Harris warning Trump is a danger to America, particularly after saying he would use the military on what he calls the enemy within. In a contentious interview with Fox News, Harris pushing back when the interviewer played a clip of Trump denying it all.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening.
Brett, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you...
that was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy.
Our thanks to Mary Bruce for that. So much more to get to tonight. The former Olympic athlete turned fugitive, who authorities say is the mastermind behind a $1 billion international drug ring, and the mysterious tar balls washing ashore on one of Australia's most popular beaches. More than 150 people were killed. At least 50 others are continuing to receive treatment in the hospital. Nigeria's president says authorities will conduct a review of fuel safety procedures. In Sydney, Australia, that country's famous Bondi Beach has reopened after it was closed because of mysterious tar balls that washed ashore. The dark, sticky golf ball-sized blobs washed up starting Tuesday at 7 local beaches. People had been advised to not swim or touch them. Authorities are investigating the cause. Tonight, we wanted to take a closer look at the inspiring story of Christopher and Dana Reeve and their family. The new documentary, Superman, takes us inside their lives before and after a catastrophic injury left Christopher paralyzed. I spoke with Reeve's children, including ABC News' own Will Reeve, as they share their journey through grief after the loss of their dad and Will's mom, Dana Reeve. Here's part of that conversation. Thank you all so much for joining us for this really important, moving conversation. I want to start actually in a very unconventional way, because obviously on the face of it, this movie is about Superman and about Christopher Reeve. But really, I think it's almost a subplot is the strength, courage, and superpower of love and devotion of Dana. And so I'm just wondering what you all think is the message that you would like viewers to come away with regard to your mom.
That's kind of you to say, and glad you noticed, right? Because yes, it's called Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, but there is no Christopher Reeve story without Dana Reeve, without my mom, and she was a singular gift to the world. She brought such grace and grit and compassion and courage and all these other things. Not only her relationship with our dad, but to her role as a mother and ultimately as a caregiver and as a public figure. And she did it all with a smile on her face.
You have this gift, this treasure trove of footage.
How does it feel to be riding your bike, sir?
If someone had told me before my injury that you could teach a kid to ride on his own just by talking to him, I would have said that that was impossible.
What came first? Was it that we have all this, we should do something with this, or there was a desire to make a movie? And by the way, we have this whole backstory.
It was kind of a combination. This all started when I was cold emailed by an archive specialist based in the UK who wondered if we had home movies and we had this material and if we'd ever thought about doing something. And coincidentally, we had just kind of boxed up a family home and we knew what we had. We talked amongst ourselves and we thought if we were ever going to do it, now's the right time. So it started there, and we really have Dana to thank. She was the family documentarian.
And part of that story in the film, we hear from both of you. Willa, you were obviously just 2 years old at the time that the accident happened, but just kind of give us a sense of how you all found out and then your first moment, you know, seeing your dad.
So we were so young at the time. Will was only 2. He turned 3 when our dad was still in the intensive care unit. I was 11 at the time, and Matthew was 15. And we got the phone call from Dana saying, this terrible thing has happened. Get here as quickly as you can. And I remember we were apart at the time. You were up in London, and just rushing to find airplane tickets and jump on that plane and then fly over to the hospital where he was in Virginia. But what's amazing about Dana is she knew that the most important thing was for us to be there and to be with Dad. And so literally we got off the plane, got to the hospital, and then we were right in there with him. And, you know, he was in the intensive care unit, hooked up to every machine imaginable. But she said to us, you know, that's still him. He's still there. You go hold his hand and you tell him that you're here and that we're all here for him. And that's really just how we approached all those years after the accident, too, is, you know, being together is the most important thing.
Did it change the way he became as a father for the 3 of you?
I mean, completely. I mean, he went through a very severe near-death experience that left him paralyzed, and that's going to change anyone. But it also changed the ways we could interact together. We couldn't go skiing or sailing or swimming and things like that, but we could spend time together. And I think also just going through everything that he went through, he became more reflective, became sort of more spiritual and meditative and sort of aware of what relationships really mean and what was important.
There is also another moment, a woman who's interviewed who says that prior to him really bringing this attention to spinal cord injury and disabled people, she said that disability was not part of humanity, which I thought was such a profound thing to say. And I'm wondering, with that said, what you all would like to see for the future of the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation.
We are so proud of the legacy of that foundation and the work that it's continuing today. When my dad had his accident, people would talk about spinal cord injury research as the graveyard of neuroscience, not even worth paying attention. You have an accident, you're in the intensive care unit for a little bit, and then you get sent home or get sent to an institution. And that is not the case today. There have been hundreds of millions of dollars invested in spinal cord injury research, and people are seeing improved mobility and quality of life.
And it has a dual mission and a dual legacy. It's the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, and its mission statement or slogan is today's care, tomorrow's cure. My mom was focused on getting us through each day and making sure that Dad was okay and our family was okay and that we could get from point A to point B, literally and figuratively. And that is where the Paralysis Resource Center came from. There now is a handbook for families that are dealing with this terrifying event. There are resources that are deployed at a federal level and on a more personal and community-based level that directly focus on quality of life for people impacted by paralysis.
And how about you being in a cameo in the upcoming Superman?
I don't know what I can say, Lindsay. Maybe we'll talk off air. No, it is a nice full circle moment. I think I have like half a line in the upcoming Superman relaunch. In all seriousness, what was nice about it, the reason that I jumped at the chance, aside from it being a fun thing to do for a day, was we realized, and this whole process of bringing this film out into the world has made us realize, again, on maybe even a bigger level, just how much our dad meant to the world, especially as Superman. To know that he matters so much to people in that role, I understood immediately and innately, like, oh yeah, I got to do this. It's it's not about me. It's about the people who loved him.
Thank you so much for sharing the family story. Really, I think it's a gift for us all. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And still to come, are you down bad for Halloween decorations? Don't wait a fortnight to enjoy a spooky setup. We're getting a look at the lawn layout of your wildest dreams and hear about the anti-hero who inspired it all. Down in New Orleans, Halloween decorations are nothing to shake off. And for 20 years, the owner of an iconic mansion on one of the city's famous streets has been decorating for the spooky season with skeletons. This year, the setup is entering a new era. Reporter Kenny Lopez from our partner station WGNO gives us a tour.
At the Skeleton House NOLA, it's the dawn of a new era, the Terror Swift Scaras Tour.
13 different tailors and one football player that you might recognize.
These tailor versions of the pop star are popping up in Llewellyn Berger's boneyard with the help of her 11 grandchildren.
So we put our little family minds together because we're all a little bit crazy and came up with all these different ideas. My younger grandchildren did all the friendship bracelets, so it was a family affair.
All these skeletons are tailor-made.
Earlier career was in fashion, so I really liked doing this. A lot of the outfits are former outfits of any one of our children or grandchildren. Several of them are gymnastics outfits, so I had fun sewing a lot of the outfits. I mipodged every face so they'd have a different singing shape. I hope you notice the eyelashes. Her fingernail polish had to match the color scheme. The hairstyles are different on every single one. It really kind of took one full day per skeleton because I really wanted to honor her. She's such an icon.
Spooky season is upon us. Our thanks to Kenny for that. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Have a great night.